"Hey," I said, "stop right there. Are you deaf or just ignoring me, old man? You can't just wander in here looking like that. This is a respectable event." The words, sharp and loud, bounced off the stone walls of the old church. Mr. Peterson, John, just 70 years old, felt a vibration more than heard the shout. He turned, his calm blue eyes looking at the young police officer. John was, in fact, deaf. He had been for many years, a gift from his time serving his country. John wore a simple, clean suit. It was old but well cared for. On his lapel, almost hidden, was a small, tarnished pin. It was the eagle, globe, and anchor of the United States Marine Corps. He was here for a special service, a day to remember fallen comrades and to honor those still living. He had been invited. He raised a hand slowly, pointing to his ear and then shaking his head. He reached into his inside pocket for the little pad and pen he always carried. He needed to explain. The officer, Miller, was young. He had a shiny badge and an even shinier attitude. He saw John's movement as something else. He saw an old man, maybe homeless, maybe confused, trying to get into a place where important people were gathering. He puffed out his chest. "Oh, no you don't. Reaching for something, are we? I told you to stop." John's eyes, usually so calm, showed a flicker of confusion then hurt. He simply wanted to write that he was deaf and that he belonged here. He held up the small notepad, trying to show it was harmless. But Officer Miller was not interested in looking. He was interested in showing his authority. "I've had enough of your games. You're not listening to me. You're resisting." His voice got louder, harsher. People nearby, heading into the church, started to turn and watch. They saw the officer yelling. They saw the old man looking confused. John tried again. He took a step forward, intending to offer the pad and pen. It was a mistake. "That's it. You're coming with me." Officer Miller grabbed John's arm. John, surprised by the sudden roughness, instinctively pulled back. It wasn't a strong pull, just a reaction. But for Officer Miller, it was enough. Assaulting an officer, you old troublemaker. Before John could even process what was happening, before anyone in the gathering crowd could intervene, Officer Miller unclipped his taser. The crackle of electricity filled the air for a horrifying second. Then John's body stiffened and he fell to the hard ground. His old bones hit the stone steps with a painful thud. The little notepad and pen scattered beside him. Do you think this was fair? If you believe this was a terrible mistake, type unfair in the comments below. John lay there, his mind reeling. The pain from the taser was sharp, but the pain in his heart was worse. He had served his country with honor. He had faced dangers most people could only imagine. And now, this, humiliation, in front of a church, on a day meant for respect. He felt the familiar sting of tears, but he blinked them back. Marines didn't cry easily. He slowly pushed himself up. His body ached. Officer Miller stood over him, looking triumphant, but also a little nervous now that John was on the ground and people were whispering. "See what happens when you don't comply." Miller said, mostly to himself, a weak justification. John didn't try to speak. He knew it was useless. He looked at the officer, his gaze steady, filled not with anger, but with a deep, profound sadness. He thought about walking away, about just going home and forgetting this whole terrible morning. But then he remembered why he was here. He remembered the friends he had lost. He remembered the promise he had made to always honor them. He couldn't just leave. And then he remembered something else, a lifeline, a promise from long ago. His brothers in arms had told him, if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call. He rarely asked for help. He was a giver, not a taker. But this felt different. This wasn't just about him. It was about respect. It was about how people who served were sometimes treated. He reached slowly, carefully, for his other pocket, the one Officer Miller hadn't seen. He pulled out an old worn cell phone. It wasn't a new fancy one. It was simple, like him. His fingers, a little shaky, found the contact. It was a special number, one he hoped he would never have to use. He pressed send. He couldn't speak into the phone, so he had a pre-typed message ready for situations like this, a simple text explaining he needed help in his location. He just had to add a few words. He typed, "Officer, church, unfair." Then he sent it. He didn't know if anyone would come. He didn't know how long it would take. He just sat there on the cold steps, his dignity wounded but his spirit somehow still holding on. Officer Miller was now trying to pull him up, saying something about taking him to the station. The crowd was growing larger. Whispers turned into murmurs. Some people looked angry, some looked scared, some just looked confused. An older woman in a fine dress stepped forward. "Officer," she began, "what on earth happened here? This man looks unwell." Miller snapped at her. "Ma'am, this is official police business. This man assaulted me and resisted arrest. Please step back." John just closed his eyes for a moment. He prayed for strength. He prayed for understanding. It didn't take long, maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. John was still sitting on the steps. Officer Miller was impatiently trying to get him to move when a low rumble started in the distance. It grew louder. It sounded like engines, many engines. Heads turned. The crowd looked down the street, and then they saw them. First one, then two, then a whole line of dark green vehicles. Not police cars. These were military vehicles, and they were moving fast. They pulled up, one after another, surrounding the entrance to the church square. Doors opened, and out stepped Marines, young ones, old ones, in their dress blues, sharp and imposing. They moved with a purpose that was unmistakable. Officer Miller's jaw dropped. His face, which had been red with bluster, now turned pale white. He looked from the Marines to John, and then back to the Marines. He suddenly looked very small, and very, very alone. Have you ever seen someone realize they made a huge mistake? Type, "oh no," if you can picture that officer's face. A tall, stern-faced Marine, a colonel by his insignia, stepped forward. His eyes scanned the scene, taking in John on the steps, the discarded taser wires, Officer Miller's shocked face, and the watching crowd. His gaze was like ice. "What is going on here?" The colonel's voice was calm, but it cut through the air like a knife. It was a voice used to giving commands and used to being obeyed, instantly. Officer Miller swallowed hard. "Sir, Colonel, sir, this man, he was causing a disturbance. He assaulted me." His voice trembled. The colonel's eyes fixed on John. He walked over to John, ignoring Miller. He knelt down. "John," he said, his voice suddenly gentle, "are you all right, old friend?" John looked up. A small, tired smile touched his lips. He knew this man. They had served together a lifetime ago. He nodded slowly. The colonel helped John to his feet, carefully, respectfully. Then he turned back to Officer Miller. His face was granite again. "This man," the colonel said, his voice ringing with authority, "is Gunnery Sergeant John Peterson, retired. He served this country for 30 years. He has 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, and the Navy Cross. He is a hero. He is also profoundly deaf from combat injuries." A gasp went through the crowd. Officer Miller looked like he was going to be sick. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing he could say. The truth was laid bare, and it was devastating for him. "He was invited here today," the colonel continued, his voice tight with controlled anger, "as an honored guest. And you, officer, you tased him?" The police chief arrived then, looking flustered and worried. He had clearly been called by someone in the colonel's convoy. He rushed forward. "Colonel, what's the situation? I just got a call." The colonel looked at the chief. "The situation, chief, is that one of your officers has assaulted a decorated war hero, a guest of this city, outside a church. He tased a deaf man who was trying to tell him he couldn't hear." The chief's face went grim. He looked at Miller, then at John, who was now being attended to by a Marine medic. "Officer Miller," the chief said, his voice cold, "your badge, your weapon. Now, you're on administrative leave, effective immediately. We will have a full investigation." Officer Miller, defeated and ashamed, slowly unclipped his badge. His hands were shaking. He looked like a child who had been caught doing something terrible. The tough bully from minutes ago was gone. The chief turned to John. "Mr. Peterson, Gunnery Sergeant, on behalf of the entire department, I am so deeply sorry. This should never have happened. There is no excuse for this." He sounded truly sorry. His eyes showed shame for his officer's actions. John simply nodded. He was tired. He didn't want apologies as much as he wanted understanding. The colonel put a supportive arm around John. "We'll take care of him, Chief. We'll make sure he gets the respect he deserves." He then addressed the crowd, many of whom were now looking at John with awe and sympathy. Today was meant to honor men like John. Let's not let this shameful incident overshadow that. John was escorted into the church, not by the police, but by a Marine honor guard. The service was delayed, but when it began, there was a new understanding in the air. John was given a seat of honor at the very front. The story of what happened outside spread like wildfire. The company, in this case, the police department, made big changes. Officer Miller was, after a thorough investigation, fired. He had to attend many classes on how to deal with people, especially those with disabilities, and how to control his temper. New training programs were started for all officers, focusing on de-escalation, communication with deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals, and veteran sensitivity. They made sure every officer knew that respect was the first rule. John, of course, got what he came for. He attended the service, he remembered his friends, he felt the brotherhood of his fellow Marines around him, stronger than ever. The incident became famous, a story told in veteran circles and even in the local news, a hard lesson about judging others and the importance of listening, even when someone cannot speak your language. John stayed humble. He didn't want to be famous for being tased, but he was glad that what happened might help others. He was glad that Officer Miller learned a lesson and that the police department was trying to be better. He hoped people would remember to look beyond appearances, to treat everyone with kindness, and to honor those who had given so much. What do you think is the most important lesson from this story? Is it about not judging by looks, or about respecting veterans? Or maybe it's about how quick we can be to assume the worst. This story reminds us that heroes often don't wear capes. They walk among us, quiet and unassuming, carrying stories of bravery we can only imagine. They deserve our respect, our patience, and our understanding every single day. If you believe our veterans, our quiet heroes, deserve unwavering respect and support, type heroes in the comments. And please, subscribe to this channel for more stories that matter, stories that can change hearts and minds. Remember, a little kindness can make a big difference. Never forget those who served.